I'm standing in front of our museum's A-4 Skyhawk. Now, whenever you hear a military aircraft designation or name, the thing to remember is there's an official designation that the government gives it, there's a name presented to it by the builders, and typically there's another name. There's a name given to it by the crew or by the maintenance people. Depending on how good or how bad the aircraft functioned, often you could get some pretty funny nicknames. There's a famous Marine aircraft, and people who flew it called it the Dret. And Dret is the word turd said backwards. So that's an example of how some of these aircraft get their names. So the A-4 Skyhawk, the A-4 part of that is the military designation. Skyhawk is what the Douglas company called it. But anybody who ever flew this thing, they have a different name for it. They call it the Scooter, because this is the most basic jet you're ever going to find. It was originally designed as a one-man, one-engine, one-bomb nuclear delivery system. In 1954, when this thing first came out, it was intended to be part of our nuclear triad. We didn't have ballistic missiles yet, at least not very functional ones. So instead, we were going to rely on manned aircraft to deliver thermonuclear warheads into Russia. And that would have been a one-way trip. There was no coming home from trying to do that kind of a delivery. But that was our mindset in the early Cold War. This had only been in service for a couple of years before they realized the chance of us using a fleet of single-person airplanes to take out Russian cities wasn't a really valid plan. They incorporated it more into the strike role. This became a very well-respected light bomber. They built almost 3,000 of these altogether, and some of them still exist and fly for different militaries today. I think Singapore still has them. Up until recently, New Zealand was flying them, several other nations. So from the 1950s into the 2000s, that's a really good service life. It's a testament to the guy that designed it. And that guy, Ed Heinemann, is, in my mind, probably one of the most remarkable aviation engineers in history. He did some really amazing things. What he's most famous for, his most famous product, was the SBD Dauntless, the aircraft that sank 4 Japanese aircraft carriers at the Battle of Midway, sank more Japanese shipping than any other air asset in the war. That's pretty good for a single-engine light dive bomber. So he designed it with an interesting design philosophy. Everybody else at the time, as we grew out of biplanes and into metal monoplanes, the first thing we realized is these things take up a lot of space, so we need to fold the wings if possible. That if possible thing was sent out to all of the aviation designers that were putting together Navy aircraft. If you're going to put it on an aircraft carrier and it's not a biplane anymore, we need to find a way to fold the wings, either up or sideways, something. Well, Mr. Heinemann looked at that as a flaw, as a weakness in the aircraft. Any place where you put a hinge on a wing, then you have to have a locking mechanism. Stuff can go wrong, and battle damage can go wrong. So if you want to make a really resilient aircraft, whether it's a carrier aircraft or ground-based, you don't really want to fold the wings. That's always going to be a weak spot. And for him, there was no reason for it. He's like, no, if you can make it in a way where the aircraft can be stowed together, if they can nest, that works. That does all the same things as folding up the wings. So while other companies were concentrating on that for their products, he created the SBD Dauntless, and one of his questions to the military before he designed it was, how big are your elevators? If you can build my airplane where it'll fit on the elevator of an aircraft carrier without having to fold its wings, isn't that better? And the Navy thought it over and said, you know what, that's an outstanding workaround. That works. If you do it that way, we don't have any issues with your design. And that design ended up being the only design in Navy history that was ever designed, developed, fielded, had its whole service life, and got replaced, and then later replaced its replacement. After the SB-2C Helldiver was created, it was supposed to be the fix for all the little tiny issues that they had with the Dauntless. If we can make it bigger, carry a bigger bomb load, if you can make it go faster, if you can make it a little bit more defendable. So they fixed all these problems on the Dauntless by coming up with the Helldiver, which it was not a good aircraft. On the first batch, the tails would break off when they landed on an aircraft carrier. There were all kinds of rather huge problems with that. And it was bad enough that for a short period of time, the military, the Navy and the Marines actually brought back the earlier SBD Dauntless as a replacement, temporary replacement for the Helldiver while they sorted through its problems. I don't know that that ever happened another time in naval aviation history. So it speaks volumes about the ruggedness and the survivability and everything else about that SBD Dauntless. So years later, time has passed, and the Navy needs a new light strike bomber. And they do have the requirement to carry a nuclear weapon. So they come to the same guy, Ed Heinemann, and say, what can you come up with? And his first question to the Navy was, how big are your elevators? He went right back to that primary question of his own. And when they gave him the dimensions, they said, yeah, this is how big all of the aircraft carrier elevators are. He designed the A-4 Skyhawk to fit an aircraft carrier elevator without ever having to worry about folding the wings. So if you look at it, it does have small wings, but it's a bit of a delta. And that flared shape on the wing provides a lot of the lift that you would need that most aircraft use, typically just a little bit longer wings. The wings on this are a little short, but because of their shape, it provides all the same amount of lift that it would need under any reasonable circumstance. So starting in Vietnam, this became our primary light attack bomber. Together with the A-7 Corsair II, it made up the backbone for strike aboard aircraft carriers. For specialized night missions or low altitude stuff, we had the A-6 Intruder. But those three aircraft made up they made up the fist in naval aviation. So when you look at these aircraft, just remember that these are intended to take one man on what would very likely be a one-way mission. And out of that single mission, a career of over 50 years grew for this aircraft. In fact, for 2 generations of naval pilots, once you got into a jet, if you were flying a Tomcat or a F-18, you did that after you qualified on the A-4, the TA-4 Skyhawk. So this is really what taught a generation of pilots to be the Maverick or be the Top Gun pilots. First, you start with the Skyhawk. So that's our museums. It's painted up as Commander Green's. He was lost in Vietnam. A whole bunch of these were lost in Vietnam. So that's our tribute to him. We have it painted up. We had the family here when we commissioned this aircraft. We've had it since 1981, since I came to the museum. And it's, I think, a good testament to the Vietnam War. And it's basically about the only thing we have to that conflict. So that's the A-4 Skyhawk.